You think you know Snow White, the jealous stepmother, the magic mirror, 7 dwarfs, a poisoned apple, and true love's kiss. But everything you've been told is a lie, carefully sanitized over centuries to hide something far more disturbing. The original story wasn't written to entertain children. It was written to warn them about dangers so real and so terrible that people couldn't speak about them directly. Today, we're uncovering the truth hidden inside Snow White, a coded message about actual crimes that medieval audiences would have immediately recognized. Once you understand what the glass coffin really meant, once you learn why the original villain was Snow White's biological mother, you'll realize this was never just a fairy tale. It was evidence of something much worse. The Brothers Grimm didn't invent Snow White. They collected it from elderly peasant women in early 19th century Germany. And in their original 1812 manuscript, preserved now in the Berlin State Library, the woman who orders Snow White's death isn't a stepmother at all. It's her mother, her biological mother. In Jacob Grimm's precise handwriting appears the German word die Mutter, not stepmother, simply mother. This mother orders a huntsman to kill her 7-year-old daughter and bring back her lungs and liver as proof. And when he delivers what she believes are Snow White's organs, she doesn't just dispose of them. The text explicitly states, "The cook had to boil them in salt, and the wicked woman ate them up, believing she was devouring her own child's essence." This wasn't a transcription error. The Grimms changed this detail in later editions to make the story more palatable, transforming the mother into a stepmother. But they couldn't erase what this tale really was, a warning about infanticide and the very real dangers young girls faced within their own households. Consider the historical context. In medieval German territories, young noble women were political pawns. Their beauty determined their value in marriage alliances. When a daughter's beauty surpassed her mother's, it could shift the balance of power within noble households. Take the documented case of Margareta von Waldeck from 16th century Bavaria. At age 13, she suffered a sudden wasting illness just weeks after her betrothal to a powerful duke, a match that would have elevated her above her mother's station. Court physicians' notes hint at symptoms consistent with mercury poisoning. Her mother inherited Margareta's dowry and negotiated a new alliance. No investigation was ever conducted. The mirror in Snow White wasn't magical thinking to medieval listeners. Elaborate mirrors were genuine status symbols, costing more than entire estates. When the mirror declares Snow White the fairest of them all, it's not offering a compliment, it's pronouncing a death sentence, announcing a transfer of power the queen cannot accept. And those specific organs, lungs and liver? In medieval German folklore, the lungs contained the breath of life, the essence of youth, while the liver housed the soul's vitality. The queen doesn't just want Snow White dead, she wants to consume the physical sources of her daughter's beauty, engaging in what anthropologists recognize as symbolic vampirism. After Snow White escapes, she doesn't flee to safety. She enters servitude with 7 men in the forest. The Grimms called them dwarfs, but folklore historians have uncovered something far more unsettling. In 16th and 17th century German mining regions, historical records document extensive use of child labor. Children as young as 7 were sent into mines because their small bodies could navigate narrow tunnels. They were called Kleinbergleute, literally small mountain people, which the Grimms translated as dwarfs. Mining archives from 1618 described boys and girls who entered the mines at 7 and, if they survived, emerged permanently stunted, their growth arrested by malnutrition and toxic fumes, their spines curved from years of crouching in 3-foot-high tunnels, their skin pale as mushrooms from lack of sunlight. These child miners slept in communal barracks hidden deep in forests. Local girls, often runaways or orphans, would keep house for these communities in exchange for protection and shelter. When Snow White arrives at the cottage and begins cooking and cleaning for 7 small men who work all day and return covered in grime, contemporary audiences would have recognized this instantly. The 7 dwarfs weren't magical beings. They were society's most exploited children, and Snow White had joined their ranks, trading domestic servitude for survival. The 3 murder attempts reveal an escalating pattern modern criminologists recognize as classic predatory behavior. First, bodice laces used to suffocate. Then, a poisoned comb, a direct attack on beauty itself. Finally, the apple. Red on one side, white on the other. Poisoned only on the red side. The queen eats the white half to prove it's safe. This apple connects to one of the most chilling aspects of the historical record. In medieval Germany, there was a documented practice among poisoners, the creation of Judas fruits, apples or other fruits partially injected with poison, designed to kill slowly enough that the poisoner could establish an alibi. These were infamous enough that Italian diplomats wrote warnings about them. The symptoms Snow White displays, immediate paralysis, preservation of beauty, the appearance of death while potentially maintaining minimal life signs, match exactly the effects of concentrated belladonna extract from deadly nightshade plants that grew wild in German forests. The glass coffin wasn't a fairy tale invention either. Noble families across Europe actually commissioned crystal or glass-topped coffins for young women who died under suspicious circumstances, particularly when questions of inheritance were involved. The transparent coffin served 3 purposes. It proved the heir was truly dead, preventing rival claims. It displayed her beauty one final time, a morbid advertisement of the family's genetic stock. And it prevented anyone from examining the body too closely for signs of foul play. When Snow White lies in her crystal coffin, she joins a long line of noble daughters whose deaths enriched their families and whose bodies became public spectacles of private crimes. In the grim original, Snow White isn't awakened by true love's kiss. A prince becomes obsessed with her corpse. Yes, her corpse. And convinces the dwarfs to give him the glass coffin. He has his servants carry it everywhere he goes. When they stumble, the jostling dislodges the apple from her throat. She awakens not from love, but from pure accident, after being treated as an object of necrophilic obsession. The wedding that follows brings the tale's final revelation. The evil queen is forced to dance in red-hot iron shoes until she dies. This wasn't fantasy. It was historical fact. This specific execution method was reserved in medieval law for one particular crime, matricide or attempted matricide. This theatrical punishment demonstrated that certain crimes violated the natural order so fundamentally that they required supernatural levels of retribution. Every listener would have understood. Her crime was recognized as the most heinous possible. Harvard folklorist Maria Tatar made a discovery that transforms our understanding of this tale. In the margins of the Brothers Grimm's working notes, they had written Mahnung und Warnung, reminder and warning. This wasn't meant to be entertainment. It was meant to be a cautionary tale, encoding real dangers that young women faced, preserving knowledge of actual crimes too horrible to speak of directly. Even the numbers were chosen with precision. 7 dwarfs represented a complete cycle of hiding. 3 murder attempts matched legal precedent. Under Germanic law, 3 attempts at murder elevated the crime to high treason when the victim was noble blood. The bifurcated apple embodied the duality the entire tale explores. The mother who should protect, but instead destroys. The beauty that should be celebrated, but instead incites murder. And the home that should be safe, but becomes the greatest source of danger. And Snow White's age. In the 1812 version, she's 7 years old when her mother first tries to kill her. 7. The same age children entered servitude in the mines. The same age a girl could be betrothed. the same age at which young noble girls began appearing in court records as victims of mysterious illnesses that benefited their mothers' political positions. The transformation of this tale into children's entertainment represents one of the most successful acts of historical erasure ever accomplished. Disney's 1937 version eliminated every warning element. The mother became unambiguously a stepmother. The dwarfs became comic figures. The prince's necrophilic obsession became true love's kiss. Snow White transformed from a 7-year-old abuse victim to a singing teenager. The sanitization was so complete that modern audiences have no idea they're watching a story that originally documented systematic child abuse and attempted filicide. But yet the darkness persists. Children instinctively recognize something wrong with the tale. They ask why the mother wants Snow